So you bought a foam cannon, but you're not quite getting the rich and thick foam you were expecting? In this video, I'm going to show you some tips and tricks on how to get thick, rich foam out of your existing foam cannon. The foam cannon I use is a MATCC one that I was able to get off Amazon fairly cheap, and it does the job well. The first thing you'll want to make sure of is that your foam cannon is configured properly. At the top of my particular foam cannon, there's a dial, and I always set this to the most minus as possible because that allows for maximum soap. Next up, you'll want to make sure that the nozzle is set to a fairly thin setting. I find that the thin setting gets me the thickest and richest foam, but make sure it's not fully closed. One common tip I've seen a ton of online is people are recommending to change up the orifice within the foam cannon itself. Now for my foam cannon, I actually haven't changed the orifice. I've kept it as the default one that came with it, and I was able to get some very rich and thick foam regardless. There's a lot of different soaps out there that are branded for foam cannons. The one that I like to use is by Chemical Guys. It's called Mr. Pink. This thing smells absolutely fantastic. It has a nice bubblegum scent, and it gives some really nice, rich, and thick foam. Next up, you'll want to make sure you're using the right amount of soap. My foam cannon is marked with a couple of different notches here. I've got a 500 milliliter notch and I've got a 100 milliliter notch. I typically like to go with a ratio of 1 to 10. So for every 1 part soap, I have 10 parts water. So I typically fill up to about 100 milliliters of soap, sometimes a little bit more, and then I fill up the rest of the bottle with water. Now, as you can see, I filled up a little bit more than 100 milliliters. A little bit extra soap doesn't hurt. It gives you all the more suds. Now, another simple tip is to make sure you're using hot water to mix with the soap. It's just simple chemistry. If you use cold water, the cold water is not going to mix very well with the soap and you're not going to get good suds. But by using hot water, it's going to really allow the soap to mix in with the water and will allow you to get some nice, rich, and thick suds out of the cannon. Now that you've added hot water to your soap, make sure you've got a nice tight seal. You close up everything properly, and you're going to want to give it a good shake to make sure that there's no soap left at the bottom and that it's all mixed together nice and thoroughly and really well. The next tip is to make sure that your pressure washer is configured correctly. If it has a built-in soap reservoir, make sure that's set to minimum or off. And my pressure washer has 2 different pressure settings, a low setting and a high setting. I find that the high setting gets me a lot more foam and suds. You'll want to make sure that your foam cannon can actually support your high setting if you have it, so double check the instructions. Next up, you'll want to make sure that the hose you're using allows for maximum water throughput. I find a flexible or expanding hose like the one I'm using here typically limits the water throughput and doesn't allow you to get the best suds, but if you have a standard green garden hose on hand, you'll be able to get really good suds with that one. Okay, now we're ready to spray. You'll want to make sure that your foam cannon is connected to the lance with a nice, tight and snug fit. That way there's no gaps at all. And you'll want to double check your configuration of the actual foam cannon. The nozzle up front should be set to a thin setting but not fully closed, and the knob on top should be set to as minus as possible to allow for maximum soap. As you can see, with a couple of simple tips and tricks, this foam cannon has produced some amazingly beautiful, thick and rich foam, perfect for cleaning up your ride. And last but not least, you'll want to make sure your foam cannon is ready for next time. Dump out any excess unused liquid and try to fill up the foam cannon as best as you can with some hot water, really trying to get in every single nook and cranny. This might take a couple of tries to fill it up, dump it out. Once it's clean and there's minimal bubbles left, try to clean up the hose. If you actually shoot water directly into the hose, it's a good way of cleaning it up. Try to get into the orifice as well. There may be some soap stuck in there as well as the nozzle. Once you've done a good job of cleaning everything up, you're ready to package this guy up and he's good for next time. I hope this video helps you get amazing foam out of your foam cannon. If you found it useful, I'd appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button and like for more.